In 1959, at the height of the Detroit Chrome era, Ford created something the world had never seen before. A car that could fold its entire steel roof with the push of a button. They called it the Skyliner, and it left America speechless. Thousands of people crowded Ford dealerships just to witness that breathtaking mechanical performance. A miracle made of electricity and steel. But behind that spectacle lay a dark secret Ford never wanted you to know. Because the very technology that made the Skyliner legendary was also what destroyed it. Every motor, every wire, every bolt in that roof system built a masterpiece and a nightmare for the company that made it. The Skyliner was the razor's edge between genius and disaster. Ford crossed that line, and the price it paid wasn't just in dollars, but in one of the most painful chapters of Detroit's history. The story didn't begin on the road. It began inside Ford's boardrooms in Dearborn, where the company was under immense pressure from General Motors and Chrysler. After the success of the Thunderbird, Henry Ford II wanted to prove that his company could do what Detroit had never dared, turn a luxury car into a stage for futuristic technology. Chief engineer Ben Smith was handed an impossible task: to build a fully retractable steel roof that looked as sleek as a coupe but opened like a convertible. He and his team spent over 2 years designing hundreds of electrical diagrams and testing thousands of folding cycles. The result was an intricate system of 7 electric motors, 10 limit switches, and more than 600 feet of wiring, all working together to make a giant metal roof disappear neatly into the trunk. When the Fairlane 500 Skyliner debuted in 1957, the public was stunned. It wasn't just a car, it was a spectacle of American pride. Ford called it Magic Sky, a slice of heaven in motion at the push of a button. By 1959, Ford elevated the Skyliner into the Galaxy 500 lineup, giving it a luxurious shape, towering tail fins, and enough chrome to make every city light dance across its surface. From every angle, the Skyliner projected confidence and power, a declaration in steel and shining metal from an America dreaming of the space age. The front featured a massive rectangular grille flanked by dual round headlights, while the long body flowed with smooth, sculpted lines. But the most striking sight was the enormous rear end, where the entire roof mechanism hid beneath the trunk. When activated, the rear deck lifted like a spaceship hatch, revealing a ballet of motors, arms, and wires moving with mechanical precision. It was both mesmerizing and intimidating. The Skyliner was unlike any other car. Beautiful, complex, and simply too much. Its immense weight and size made it a giant among the sedans of its day. Step inside the Skyliner, and you feel as if you've entered the cockpit of a spaceship, exactly what Ford intended, to awaken America's pride during the space age. Everything gleamed: a 2-spoke chrome steering wheel, a curved airplane wing dashboard, and switches styled like those in an aircraft. The seats came in 2-tone vinyl, red and white or blue and cream, with embossed stitching that created a sense of luxury. Ford advertised it as the finest interior in its class, appealing to customers who wanted their car to feel like jewelry on wheels. Thick doors, solid handles, and polished metal trim gave the cabin an aura of wealth and confidence. The highlight was the retractable roof control button, placed neatly beside the steering wheel. A light press set the massive mechanism behind you in motion, making you feel as if you were initiating a mechanical ritual. As the steel roof folded away, sunlight poured through the cabin like a stage spotlight. 40 seconds of silent wonder that left every Ford showroom in awe. Beneath the Skyliner's gleaming skin and its miraculous folding roof lay a powerful heart, the Ford 352 FEV8 engine, displacing 352 cubic inches, equivalent to 5.77 liters, producing about 300 horsepower and nearly 380 pound-feet of torque. Ford envisioned this engine as the key to making the Skyliner not just beautiful, but genuinely powerful on the road. This V8 belonged to the Ford FE family, a heavy but durable cast-iron block with a mid-mounted camshaft and a 4-barrel carburetor. It was paired with the Cruise-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission, delivering smooth, refined shifts that perfectly matched Ford's vision of upper-class luxury. At cruising speeds, the car glided effortlessly, almost silent, a trait often compared to Lincoln and Mercury models of the era. Yet all that strength was undone by the Skyliner's massive weight. At over 4,200 pounds, the car felt sluggish off the line and returned barely 12 miles per gallon, a figure that scared away many buyers. Its soft suspension made it comfortable, but caused heavy body roll in corners. The high center of gravity and the weight of the retractable roof made handling unpredictable, especially on uneven roads. Ironically, despite its technology of the future label, the Skyliner suffered from painfully old-fashioned problems: weak cooling, electrical overloads, and enough to make the headlights flicker. And the Skyliner's retractable roof system was one of the most complex ever installed on a production car. 7 electric motors, 10 limit switches, over 610 feet of wiring, and dozens of mechanical relays, all of which had to work in perfect harmony just to open or close the roof. A single misaligned switch or loose wire could stop the entire system dead. Ford dealership technicians had to attend a special training course known as Skyliner School to learn how to repair it, yet even they often found themselves defeated. Some owners recalled that folding the roof could take more than a minute, and only completed if the car was parked at the right angle or idling at a certain RPM. Ford once proudly called it a perfect mechanical symphony, but in reality, it performed more like an orchestra without a conductor. Motors drifted out of sync, sensors failed, and wiring burned out, giving the Skyliner its notorious reputation as beautiful to watch, miserable to maintain. But producing the power-operated retractable roof was anything but simple. It required hundreds of hours of manual assembly and higher material costs than any other Ford model of its time. According to internal estimates, each Skyliner cost nearly $500 more to build, an enormous figure in the 1950s. When operating and warranty costs were added, the Skyliner was almost unprofitable. Although Ford tried to market it as an affordable luxury car, its starting price of nearly $4,000 made it as expensive as the Cadillac Series 62 and even higher than the Thunderbird. Meanwhile, its competitors, traditional convertibles that were cheaper and easier to maintain, sold many times better. In 1957, Ford sold over 20,000 Skyliners, an impressive start, but by 1958, sales dropped to around 14,000 units, and by 1959, the figure had fallen to just over 12,000, turning the project into a massive financial burden. Ford realized that every car sold only increased the company's losses. The once proud Magic Sky advertising campaign now sounded ironic. The market no longer cared for mechanical miracles, but instead focused on practicality and efficiency. The Skyliner's downfall wasn't just Ford's tragedy, it was a wake-up call for all of Detroit. Throughout the 1950s, American automakers competed to build cars that were bigger, heavier, flashier, as if chrome and electricity could define the future. Detroit believed Americans wanted to live in the space-age dream, where every car was a rocket ship and every drive a technological performance. But by the end of that decade, America was changing. The post-war generation no longer dreamed of land rockets. They wanted cars that were smaller, practical, and easier to live with. Meanwhile, Europe quietly invaded. Volkswagen's Beetle, Fiat's 500, Citroën's 2CV, cars that lacked glamour but embodied simplicity and human-centered design. In that new reality, the Skyliner became a symbol of outdated excess. It no longer represented the future, but the past, a time when Detroit thought every problem could be solved with more chrome, more motors, more buttons. Ford didn't realize that the world had evolved. Technology was no longer the dream itself, but a tool meant to serve people. And that's when the Skyliner destroyed itself. It wasn't beaten by rivals. It was undone by its own blind faith in technology, the belief that complexity equaled progress. Ford wanted to build the most intelligent car in America, but in doing so, they forgot that cars aren't meant only to impress, they're meant to be trusted. The retractable roof, once hailed as a mechanical miracle, turned out to be a double-edged sword. People admired it in showrooms, but feared it in their garages. A car that required a prayer every time the roof button was pressed wasn't a joy to own, it was a gamble. The Skyliner stands as proof of the hard lesson Detroit had to learn. Just because you can, doesn't mean you should. No one killed the Skyliner except Ford itself. They built a machine too complex, too costly, too far removed from what drivers actually wanted. In chasing the future, they forgot the present. And when technology turned against its maker, Ford finally understood. What makes people love a car isn't the number of motors it hides, but the feeling they get when their hands touch the wheel. More than 6 decades after the assembly lines stopped, the Ford Skyliner is no longer remembered as a mistake, but as a monument to boundless ambition. Only about 48,000 Skyliners were built during its brief 3-year run, and fewer than half survive today. Yet that rarity has made it a true treasure of the American classic car world. Enthusiasts no longer see the Skyliner as a mechanical disaster, but as a technical marvel with the soul of the 1950s, an era when Detroit dared to dream, dared to build, and wasn't afraid to fail. Each time its retractable roof glides smoothly into motion, one doesn't just see steel and wires, but the fearless spirit of an American generation that believed nothing was impossible. A fully restored Skyliner can fetch over $100,000 at auction. Yet its real worth isn't measured in dollars. It lies in its story, a dream ahead of its time, and how a great failure can live forever when people are brave enough to keep telling it. The Skyliner never became the icon of the future in 1959, but more than half a century later, it stands proudly as a symbol of courage and imagination, a reminder that sometimes failure isn't the end of the story, but where the legend truly begins. If you've ever seen a Ford Skyliner in person, even once, you know why people still stop and stare. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't practical, but it captured the fearless spirit of an era when Detroit dared to dream big. Share your thoughts below. Do you think modern car makers still have the courage to build something as bold as the Skyliner? Or has the age of mechanical dreams faded away forever? If you love stories about forgotten machines and unfinished dreams, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Many more legends are waiting to be rediscovered. Cars that time tried to bury, but we'll bring them back to life, one story at a time.